Okay, so today we will learn little more about gradient descent. So that is being the most important part of deep learning. So we'll learn a little more about gradient descent. So you guys already know this formula. W nu is equal to W old minus learning rate into derivative of loss by W old, right? So gradient descent is one function which will have the following shape. Gradient descent always is expected to have this shape.
Hyperbola, right?
Sorry, Nitesh, your voice is very grumbled. I cannot understand.
No, I was saying it is hyperparabola, right?
Hmm,
Yes?
no,
Okay,
still.
let me. Okay, let me connect.
So, so in this thing, what happens when we are in this part of the graph? W new is equal to W old plus learning rate into DL by DT D old. And this part new is equal to
Which was it
W
you know?
a little bit by DW old. So when you're in this part of the graph, it is plus and this part is minus because I already said here the slope is negative. So negative becomes positive, and here the slope is positive. Positive negative becomes negative. Suppose during gradient descent we are at point P1, we need to make sure that we descend in the downward direction to reach the global minima, and same applies for point P2. So this is P1 and this is point P2. We're telling that whichever point we are in, P1 or P2, we need to make sure that we are always descending in the downward direction of the slope of the gradient, right, for minimization of the loss. Okay.
We have to come towards the local minima, right?
Yes. So this is the minima point. So as I said also, you remember, in case of normal gradient descent, all the data are taken at a time and the loss is calculated on sigma 1 to n y cap by y cap minus y square. In case of mini batch stochastic gradient descent, this one is k mini batch stochastic gradient descent. This is k. That means at a time k items we are taking. So 1 to k y cap minus y whole square. And in case of stochastic gradient descent, it is 1. So every single training data is taken as a forward and a backward pass, and something is learned. So here loss is straight y cap by y whole square. So mini batch stochastic gradient descent is more commonly used. So this is the most commonly used method of optimizing the model. The problems with there, but although this is very commonly used, but it doesn't mean that it does not have any problem. There are some problems with it. we'll see about that. Okay. So what are the problems engulfing mini-batch stochastic gradient descent? So if you see, so if you see the gradient descent curve from the top, sorry, if you see the gradient descent curve from the top, and how will it look? It will look like a contour, right? I hope you guys know what
Yes,
you
yes,
mean by
photograph. Yes, yes, we have did this before.
yes. So this is a contour. So that means this is at maximum height. This is at little less height. This is at little less height. This is less height, less height, less height, and this is the bottom of the pit. Okay, so that is how it is.
So, Vishwa,
Hmm.
so this graph can also represent a top of a hill while a bottom of a pit. So how do we infer?
So you infer by looking at the values of each contour. So if this one is descending order, then this is a
Going down.
you are
Okay.
looking like this. If it is
Okay.
ascending order, then you are looking like this.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So now for gradient descent, what happens is that, so say you are at this point. You did all the n items, found out the loss, did the found out the new weights, and you reached here. Then again you did the same thing, all the items, did the loss, find the derivative, and found the new weights, and you reached here. Similarly, you reach here, here, and here. So in a gradient descent, this this path is very less noisy. Means it goes very smoothly. Okay, why? Because we are taking all the data into account. Okay, we're taking all the data into account. When you take all the data into account, then what happens is that the change is smooth, the change is constant, right? Because if I have 10 data points and I pass these 10 data points through a neural network and I found 10 errors, and I fixed those 10 errors inside the neural network in the back propagation. Again, I did the same thing for the 10 data points. Again, I found the 10 errors. Again, I found the back propagation for the 10 errors. Then what will happen is that the error that is propagated is proportional to the time of epoch, the time of the cycle. So like as you know, in gradient descent, we take all the 10 items at the same time. So this is one epoch. Then again, one more epoch. So one epoch, two epoch, three epochs. So the weight change with these epochs is very smooth in nature, proportional in nature. Means from 1 to 2, the weight will be changed from W1 to W2. Then 2 to 3, sorry, 2 to 3, the change will be W2 to W3. Similarly, W3 to W4, W4 to W5, and it will go on. So since we are taking all this same data again and again, so our proportionality of change is smooth. although this is more than this is more than this, and this is more than this, because every time the error you will reduce, because we are updating the weights of the graph to reach to the loss is reducing, but the amount by which it is reducing is same. Okay, so that is the point. So we get very smooth gradient descent, and it reaches the bottom. But the problem here is that, as we know, if there are millions of records, here I only took 10 records, so it is fine. But if we took millions of records, then all of them passing through the model and doing the summation of their loss, and then doing a derivative on their loss and updating each and every neuron and bias parameters in the memory is going to be not possible computationally, and in storage and computation wise not possible. So that's why what we do stochastic gradient descent. So in stochastic gradient descent, imagine we break these 10 items into 2 items each of say 5. So k is equal to 2 here, right? So that means the batch size is 2 here, and how many batches we have? We have 5 batches. Now point is that in my first epoch, which batch I will take, I don't know, right? Yes, I have 5 batches. I'll take this batch in the first, and I'll pass these 2 items, find the error, do the error correction, and get the new weights. In the second batch, I can take this, or I may second take this one again also. Okay, so the problem here is that we don't know which batch we are taking at which time. So that is the reason that this descent does not happen very smooth. It follows a zigzag path like this. Okay, it follows a very zigzag path like this. If you understand here, it will be like this. Okay, well, whereas gradient descent was like this, the stochastic gradient descent is like this, because the amount of weight change per epoch due to a batch is not fixed or proportionate like it was for gradient descent. Because in gradient descent, we use the same data set every time. So the proportionality of the change of weights was constant, and it gave a smooth descent. But because here we are not using the same data set every time in every epoch, so the smoothness gets disrupted, and it follows a zigzag path like this instead of a smooth curve path. Okay, and this is called noise. Okay, this is called noise. This zigzag path is called noise. So in order to reduce the noise, there is a method known as SGD with momentum. Okay, SGD with momentum. That one we will learn. Okay, what is stochastic gradient descent? Mini-batch stochastic gradient descent with momentum. Okay, but before that, let's understand one more concept called the global minima and the local minima. Okay, during the backpropagation, we always have some kind of loss function, right? You have seen yourself, there are multiple types of loss function. The one that I have mostly used is mean squared error loss function. But as you saw in the code, binary cross entropy, categorical cross entropy, there are many mathematical loss functions that can be used. Okay. This recording is going on, right? Yeah. So the target is to reduce the loss function for which we are using the optimizer like mini-batch stochastic gradient descent. So you have to understand what is the role of an optimizer in a deep learning model. The role of an optimizer in a deep learning model is to reduce the loss, okay, at every epoch to the most minimum value. That is the job of an optimizer. What is an optimizer? Gradient descent is an optimizer. Stochastic gradient descent is an optimizer. Mini-batch stochastic gradient descent is an optimizer. So these are all optimizers. Okay. In the given curve, if we have a curve loss function like this, we do not have a maxima, because this value can go to infinity and this value also can go to infinity. Whereas there is a global minima, which is this point. This is the global minima. So if a curve is like this, then we never get a maxima. We always have a global minima. The weight.
Vishwa, sorry for interruption. So we had a local minima. So now this global minima, is it like different or? I didn't get
No, for this graph, there is only one minima, which is the global, which is the local.
Okay, both are same.
Yes, for this graph.
Okay. Okay.
The weight W for which this has the most minimum value is called the best fit weight. Okay, so this weight is what we are looking for. This weight is what we are looking for which we will have the most minimum loss. But always a loss function will have a shape like this. It's not necessary, right? So the loss function that we are using, I is equal to 1 to k y cap minus y whole square. This is loss function, right? Loss. This is a parabolic function. So that's why it has this distinct shape. But we are not always using a parabolic function in loss function. Sometimes we are using different kinds of loss function. Logarithmic loss function is also there. Some other types of loss functions are there. So suppose we have a loss function which is like this. Suppose this loss function is like this. This is the weight and this is the loss. And when plotting the weight versus the loss, we get such a type of graph. So that means in this locality, this is the local minima. But in the total graph, this is the global minima. Okay. For this local region, this is the local minima. But for the entire graph, this is the global minima. Both will have a derivative or slope of 0. Both will have m equals to 0 here. Okay, so that is the trick here, that how do we know that we have reached the global minima? Because that is what we are looking for, right? We are not looking for a local minima. A local minima may temporarily tell us that we have converged and we have found the best fit weight. But if you further continue in this direction, you will get a new weight W2. So first we thought W1 is the best weight. Then we could have stopped there and said that we have converged the function and let's stop our training and model has learned. But suppose we took a advantage and we just continued. Then what will happen? We will eventually reach at weight 2, which is more lower than weight 1. So this is the global minima. Who knows, if you continue in this direction, there can be one more lower point, which can be the lower minima. We don't know. So there is always a greedy approach that is taken, that a what do you call it? A deal is done, like some percentage of bias is introduced while finding the minima. And that bias encourages the algorithm not to stop immediately when it finds a local minima, rather than go ahead looking for some time until it finds a global minima. So it is like a greedy approach for the future. Means at this time I have the local minima, which is quite good. But what if there is a better local minima, global minima in the future? So I continue going in that direction. Okay. There's a trade-off between this. So these are called critical points. A maxima and a minima, all of these are called critical points. Any point which has a slope of 0 is a critical point in a loss function. Okay. So critical points are points of interest. Either a critical point can be a maxima point or it can be a minima point. How do we know whether it is a maxima point or whether it is a minima point? How do we know? If the graph, the slope changes from positive to negative, then that means positive, 0, then negative. If this type of transition happens, positive, 0, then negative, then this is called a maxima. But if it is negative, 0, then positive, negative, 0, then positive, then it is called a minima point. So this is the criteria for a maxima point, and this is the criteria for a minima point. We are not so much interested in the maxima point, but we need to know it is a maxima point so that we don't stop our algorithm over there. We don't say that we have converged, because maxima is something which is the maximum loss. We don't want to actually converge there. Okay. So there are two types of functions called convex and non-convex functions. So this is called a convex function. And this is called a non-convex function. Non-convex function. Most of the ML algorithm will have such a curve. Most of the ML algorithm will have a convex function. Loss function will be convex function. How do you know that a function is convex or non-convex? So in a convex function, you will have only one minima, and one maxima may be present or may not be present. In a convex function, there will be one minima for sure, and one maxima and another maxima may be present or may not be present. In convex functions, we can divide the graph into two areas, only two areas. That is like this, one area, and another area is outside the graph. Okay. Whereas in case of a non-convex function, we can also divide the graph in two areas. We can also divide the graph in two areas, but okay, let me clear this out. So this is a convex function. This is a non-convex function. Okay. Now see here that if I draw a line, it can be in either of the three states. Either it starts here, ends here in this area, or starts here, ends in this area, or starts and crosses and ends in this area, right? So starts in area 1 and ends in area 1, starts in area 2, ends in area 2, starts in area 2 and ends in area 1, and one more is starts in area 2 and ends in area 2 with some part in area 1. Okay, so 4 situations can happen: area 1, area 1, area 2, area 2, area 2, area 1, area 2, some part in area 1, then area 2. In non-convex functions, all of this can happen with one more extra thing, that is this: area 2, some part in area 1, then area 2 again, and then some part in area 1 again, which is not possible in this kind of graphs. So A2, A1, A2, A1, this pattern is only possible in case of a non-convex function. All the other patterns are possible in both the cases, but this pattern is only possible in non-convex functions. So if we do have a line like this, which has this type of pattern, area 2, area 1, area 2, area 1. So area 1 means, you understand, right? This graph is under this graph, this total region is called as area 1. And outside the graph is called area 2. This is the area 2. Okay. So if this is the situation, then it is a non-convex function, and there is a possibility of a global minima and local minima. But if it is not, then it is a convex function and it has only one local minima. So it helps our algorithm to converge. Once it reaches a critical point, it stops there. But in this case, we will use the greedy method to keep going for some more time, because there is maybe another one local minima may be present. Okay, so this is called convex and non-convex functions. Okay, any doubt in this? It's a little critical concept.
No, Vishwa, so far it is okay. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
go through it again. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Now let us come to, I talked about SGD with momentum. SGD or mini batch SGD with momentum. Okay. Now, as we know, earlier we already discussed this contour mappings, that the gradient descent goes very smoothly, whereas the stochastic gradient descent takes a zigzag path and reaches here. So our target is to smoothen this zigzagness as much as possible. Because the more it is zigzag, the more time it takes to reach the global minima, right? So here we have, you will introduce a concept called exponentially moving average. Exponentially moving average. This is a concept. Okay. Imagine this is the time and this is data. At time ty, t1, you have data b1. At time t2, you have data b2. T3, you have b3. And similarly, tn, you have bn. So the value at time t1 is equal to b1. This one we already know. We got it from the graph. The value at time t2 is what? b2. But instead of this, we will write it as some gamma into v of t1 plus b2. Okay. Similarly, v of t3 is some gamma of v of t2 plus b3. Now, if I open this one, what happens? Gamma v of t2 is equal to gamma of b t1 plus b2 plus b3. Similarly, gamma into vt1 is b1 plus b2 plus b3. When you open this one, becomes gamma square b1 plus gamma b2 plus b3. This is vt3. Right? So what happens here is that if gamma is a fraction, that is some value less than 1, then gamma square is going to be more or less. Gamma is already less than 1. Gamma square is more or less than 1. And the coefficient of b3 is 1. 1 into something. This is a fraction into something. So let us consider gamma is equal to 0.5. So what will happen in this function? vt3 is equal to 0.25 of b1 plus 0.5 of b2 plus 1 of b3. So to calculate the value of v at time t3, it is dependent on v1, v2 and v3. So to calculate something at time n, we have that is dependent on all the values until n minus 1 and n, but the coefficient before them gives the importance accordingly. So B1 has the least importance, B2 has second least importance, B3 has the highest importance. So that means to calculate T3, I need some dotted line from B2, some dashed line from B1, and a straight line from B3. So this is how I calculate the value at T3. I have some effect from B1, which is feeble, little more feeble effect, little more stronger effect from B2, and strongest effect from B3. So to calculate the value at T is equal to T3, I depend on B1, B2, B3. B1 being the most feeble, B2 being the second most strongest, and B3 being the most strongest. And this applies for Tn. So this concept is called exponentially moving average concept. Exponentially moving average concept. And this is exactly what is changed in our SGD formula. This is exactly what is changed in our SGD formula, which is with momentum. W new is equal to W old minus some gamma into Vt minus 1 plus learning rate dl by d W old. So this is the new formula for SGD with momentum, where Vt minus 1 is equal to 1 into dl by dw old at t plus gamma into dl by dw old by at t minus 1 plus gamma square into dl by dw 0 at t minus 2 and so on, right? So this factor enables the new weight change from the old weight to smoothen out a little. Earlier W0 was here, then W1 was here, then W2 was here, then W3 was here, like this. With the introduction of this factor, right, the minus or plus is going to be little less, exponentially moving average less. So now it will be W0, W1, W2, W3. So it will be still zigzag, but it will be little less zigzag. The sharp changes in the zigzag will be less, the noise will be less, and hence we can reach to the momentum we can reach to the local minima pretty fast. An ideal value for gamma is 0.9. If you remember yesterday's code, we used SGD and there was a parameter called momentum and we gave the value it as 0.8. So this is that value. So what does momentum do? momentum helps in smoothing the change of the weights with the loss function. It becomes less noisy and hence it converges quickly, but with the benefits of stochastic gradient descent. Okay. Okay. With this, I stop the recording.